Continuing on with our reading, we are looking at Book 3 of the Aeneid. There are a couple of new characters that we can view or discuss. One is Polydorus, the murdered son of Priam, Ciliano, the leader of the Harpies, Helenus, another son of King Priam, and this is the man who took in Andromache after she uh, became the widow of Hector and then the concubine of Pyrrhus, son of Achilles. Andromache, of course, Hector's widow. And then remember Polyphemus, the Cyclops blinded by Odysseus, or as he is given in the book with his Roman name, Ulysses. Much of books 1 through 6 of the Aeneid are reminiscent of the Odyssey by Homer because of the nature of Aeneas's travels. They are very similar to that of Odysseus, and that if you look at it on a map, it is basically Aeneas stopping at the same places, but he is doing it in what some critics have looked at as a reverse order. Anchises' leadership tends to become what can be viewed as a problem or a nuisance because he is constantly putting in his 2 cents. To be someone who did not want to leave Troy when it was falling and had to be basically given signs by the gods and convinced by his son and even carried out of the city by his son, he is continually giving his opinion of where they should do, except it is the wrong choice. They go to Thrace first and they encounter Polydorus, who is begging for a burial, a proper burial, because he has been murdered by the king of Thrace. They continue on to Delos, which is another wrong choice, and Aeneas prays to Apollo and is told that they must leave. They go and land on Crete, according to Anchises, and another wrong choice, and they quickly realize that when the plague and pestilence hits. Strophides is definitely a wrong choice because that is the home of the Harpies. And remember, the Harpies have the face of a woman, but the body of a terrible bird, and they contaminate everything that they touch. Here, Ciliano is the leader of the Harpies, and she gives a curse to Aeneas and his men, basically saying that their trials and tribulations will be hard. They will be forced to travel. They will be broken whenever they arrive at their final destination, and their famine will hit them, and they will be so hungry that they will be forced to eat their plates. This does, in fact, happen. However, it's not the detrimental way that Ciliano predicts, so it's quite interesting to see how this ultimately plays out. They move on to Actium, which is not their final spot. They stop by Buthrotum, which is the home of Helenus and Andromache, and when they encounter Helenus and Andromache, Helenus is basically trying to create his own new Troy himself because he is wanting to set up a new home. And meanwhile, when Andromache is met by Aeneas, she is again trying to conjure that spirit of Hector up and trying to bring him back because she so desperately mourns his loss. They are instructed to avoid Scylla and Charybdis and to seek the help of the Sibyl, which is going to act as a guide to Aeneas in the underworld. And then they're ultimately going to find refuge in Sicily, where Anchises dies. While it is sad that he does die, this is going to be a bit of a relief for Aeneas. So, with Book 3, Aeneas has transformed from being a man who listens to his father to one who's going to step out on his own. And this is very shaky territory because in this culture, in that day and time, it was absolutely necessary for a son to listen to his father. The Romans valued patria potestas, which is Latin for the power of the father. So, for Aeneas to step outside of that realm could have been viewed as disrespectful. However, when Anchises is gone, there is a shift in the role that Aeneas takes, and he is then known as Father Aeneas, and he can take on his new leadership role. So as he moves on, he becomes a man with a mission. And again, as we mentioned earlier, Virgil highly imitates the style of the Odyssey in Aeneas's journey. Because he goes and meets the Cyclops Polyphemus, he goes through Circe, who goes to her island must go by Scylla and Charybdis, Scylla being the multiple-headed monster, Charybdis the whirlpool. And then book 3 can be looked at as a break in the tense storyline and is basically letting you have a bit of a break before you gear up for all of the action that is going to take in book 4. So Homer and Virgil create stories for two different audiences. Homer was writing for the people who were going to listen because stories at that time were passed down in an oral tradition, whereas Virgil was actually writing for people who were going to read his work. So these are interesting things to keep in mind. And one of the biggest things, again, to remember is that idea, that shift in leadership role of Aeneas from being that of a son to that of the leader, father, guide for his people.